Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Picture this, a small business owner in the early 1980s. He walks into his office, proud as can be because he just spent a significant chunk of money on a brand new fax machine. It sits there in the corner like a little trophy, sleek, modern, full of promise. So he does what any of us would do. He tests it. He feeds in a piece of paper, dials a number, waits, and nothing meaningful happens. No connection, no exchange, no value. That machine sits there, impressive, but useless. There's just one problem. No one else has a fax machine. Now fast forward a few years. His clients start getting fax machines, his vendors get them, competitors have them. Suddenly that same machine, that same fax machine, it's no longer a gadget. It's really a lifeline. Contracts move faster, decisions move quicker, opportunities show up sooner. Same machine, completely different value. Why? Because there's more than just one fax machine. Okay, let me tie this into networking. This really ties into networking through what's known as Metcalfe's Law. And what Metcalfe's Law says is that the value of a network grows exponentially as more people join into it. And it's not growing linearly, easy for me to say, it's growing exponentially. So here's a metaphor. If you have one person, there are 0 connections, right? If you add a second person, now there's 1 connection. You add a third person and suddenly there are 3 connections. You add a fourth, now there are 6 connections. It's not addition, it's multiplication. And so here's the takeaway. The value of your network is not the people in it. It's the connections between the people. That's a big shift. Now let's go back to that fax machine, right? It's really a real world case study for Metcalfe's Law and how it applies to networking and the people and the connections in your world. Now fax machines did come into wide use in the 1980s. I remember I was getting into business. It was a big deal. But I asked people, would they be surprised if I told them that the fax machine was actually invented in the 40s? And most people will say, oh yeah, sure, that seems perfectly logical. But actually, it's not the 1940s, it was the 1840s. A gentleman by the name of Alexander Bain invented the fax machine. It was long before phones were common. We had telegraph machines, and really what a fax machine is, it's just ones and zeros. If there's a 0, it's white. If it's a 1, it's a black. So it's really very simplistic. It certainly was refined over decades, but it didn't really take off until the later part of the 20th century, even though it was invented 150 years earlier. Why was there a delay? Because one fax machine is it's like one hand clapping, right? There's no connection, there's no value. But as the adoption spread in the 70s and 80s, and I realize fax machines are laughable right now, but as adoption spread in the 70s and 80s, businesses began to rely on them. Entire industries, deals closed faster. The machine didn't really change, the network did. And it's really sort of the same thing with the internet. The internet was really around in the 70s, and it didn't really start to take off until the early part of the 21st century, because early on with the internet, very few people were using it. So the value of the network increases as more people are participating within the network. So this is where it hits home. This is where we can take it back into networking, the parallel to networking, why your networking might feel flat. A lot of people say, I've been networking, but I'm not getting referrals. And that's like the lonely fax machine talking, because they're thinking, I know 20 people. Why isn't this working? But Metcalfe's Law reminds us it's not about the 20 people you know. It's about the 190 potential connections between those people. And if those connections aren't active, they're not communicating with one another, they're not intentional, they're not engaged, you really don't have a network, you really have a list of people. So let me say it again. You don't have a network, you have a list of 20 people. And the goal for networking is to build a network and not just have a list of people that you know. So let's talk about taking that list of people that you know, and really turning it into a network. And here are three ideas to turn that list into a network. One, increase the size, more people. I know it's obvious, but it's still undervalued, underutilized. More people leads to more connections. Again, when you go from two people where there's just one connection to three people, and then there's three connections, and then four becomes six, it starts to grow exponentially. More people, more possible connections, right? Now, when you're going from two to three, it doesn't sound that impressive, right? You go from two people, one connection, three people, there are three connections. But let's take it out a little further. Let's take it out when there are 20 people. When you have 20 people, there are 190 possible connections. When you add one additional person, just one more person, you increase the number of possible connections to 210. That's where the magic really starts to happen, where there's really power in not just growing your list, but in making connections amongst people. But this is the nuance to it. You're not adding people for your benefit. You're adding people for the benefit of everybody else. You're building the power grid, not just installing another outlet. So the first step is building that list, enhancing that list. The second list is strengthening the connections with respect to the people you have there, right? A weak connection doesn't transmit value. It's like a bad phone line, static, it's unbroken, it's unreliable. That's what shallow relationships do. So you need to have a good relationship with the people in your list. You can't just add people in your list and add people in your list. You need to know who the people are in your list. You need to have one-on-ones with them. You need to follow up. You need to create referral stories. All those things come into play. You need to create a stronger relationship with the people you have on your list. So this episode's not advocating just piling people into your world just to pile them into your world. It's bringing people in a somewhat meaningful fashion and really getting to know them, because those relationships, once you start to develop them and they become stronger, they carry energy, they carry opportunity. So step one is to build your list. Step two is to really go deep, really create a meaningful relationship with the people you have on that list. And then step three to this process is encourage interaction, right? And this can be overlooked, but it's really powerful. Most people network like this. They say, I want to meet people who can help me. But high-level networkers think this way. How can I connect people to each other? Because every time you introduce two people, you're not adding one connection, you're multiplying the network. You become the switchboard. You're empowering this network of fax machines that are out there that are making things happen, that make things move faster and become more productive. And this is where it gets real. A larger engaged network will always, always, always outperform a smaller one. It's not because the people are better, it's often the same people. It's because the possibilities become greater. More connections, more conversations. More conversations, more trust. More trust, more referrals. It's not magic, it's really just math. So look at your situation and say, okay, who can I add to my list? And who on my list do I need to get to know better, to learn about? And when you start learning about multiple people, then you can start to ask the question, okay, who in here can I connect? Because that's when the real power starts to happen. Think about it. When you bring that 21st person in, you go from the number of potential connections goes from 190 to 210. But when you bring that 21st person in, they're bringing a network too. And if they've got 20 people that they're bringing to the 20 people you already have, it's not going from 190 or 210 to 220. it's actually going to 820. It's fascinating. And it becomes a feeding frenzy of opportunity. And that opportunity will eventually benefit you, likely in a big way. If you're listening and you feel like your networking isn't working, maybe, just maybe, the problem is that it's not complete. Maybe you're like that first fax machine, waiting for the network to build around you. So don't quit, pull back, don't assume it doesn't work, lean in, add people, get to know those people, strengthen those relationships, and then take time to connect others. Because when the network grows, everything changes. And what once feels useless will then become indispensable for you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.